I think this was a pretty good game though. Like there's a lot of stuff you could learn from this game. I think you were doing pretty well sometimes, and this was a very interesting back and forth game. So yeah, you did a pretty good job versus the cannon rush. Maybe you were a little bit early to leave with this overlord. Normally I like to keep it here until like 1:30. And also like you didn't see this probe coming in, right? So yeah, like I like to keep it here until like 1:30, because then you will also see it. But yeah, you saw the forge, I guess? No. You saw something to make you cancel. Oh, you saw the... Ah, okay, so it's the cannon, yeah. It was a mistake by him then. Saw the cannon. So yeah, I think this was pretty good. Because I think here, from if you just play out the normal macro game from here, you're just ahead. Because he doesn't block your ramp or anything, right? It's like this game is still pretty comfortable for you. He wastes 100 minutes on a pylon here. His cyber core is super late, so you're not really scared of like a Stargate or anything. So like yeah, from here, I don't think you need to make any more links, just pure drones. And like if you wanted to be super safe, you could just walk a queen down here and start hitting the pylon, since it's out of the range from the cannon, right? The cannon can only reach like here. Yeah, the Roach Warren was a bit of a mistake. Like again, you had the scouting info. Like if you thought about the timing of these stuff, like the Cybercore and the Stargate, you would know that you don't need a Roach Warren right now. So yeah, you're floating a bit. So what you should do with your money is just take this hatch right away as soon as you have the money for it. Start extra queens, and just keep droning. But yeah, this was a good cleanup. You defended this when he wasted a bunch more money. Losing his queen wasn't the best, but it's fine. So yeah, here what we should do is just drones, make queens when you're doing that. So like all you're doing now, you're doing the right things. You should just done them a bit faster, right? Like this hatch should have been a bit faster. Like this base should probably be done by now already, and this one should be on the way back up as well. And yeah, link speed probably would have been good to get, just so you can have some Sterlings out. You're moving them out now, which is good, just to check if it's expanding. You scout for that. You should also just poke at the wall here, because if you see, like if by this time, if he hasn't started +1, it's very unlikely that he's going for ground, right? He would have used his forge by now if he was planning on playing a ground-based composition. And he's also gonna start +1 range at some point here, so you could also check for that. So far so good. Yeah, and I think this game you probably weren't sure what was happening exactly, because I think if you knew that he was going Sky Toss, you would have there's some things you could have done differently here. So like these Hydras are basically kind of useless right now, because he doesn't really have anything that can do anything against you, right? He has 3 Void Rays, so you can deal with that with queens. So like these Hydras are okay if you're planning to go for like a 70 drone timing, where you're just like, you're gonna bring your queens, you're gonna bring your Hydras, and you just walk across the map and try to bust him, right? But if you're planning on playing a macro game like you did here, you should have probably just kept droning here, up to like 85 or so. And yeah, your Overseer came here, it saw this one spinning after the gateway, so you know it's getting +1 air, you see more Void Rays. So now you should know he's going Sky Toss. So yeah, and versus Sky Toss, you actually don't want this. I would prefer getting armor over this versus Sky Toss, just because it really helps a lot versus carriers, and like your links are gonna be good enough anyways if the ground units doesn't have any upgrades. And yeah, your link speed was really late. So it's really nice versus this Void Ray style to just have like a ling. Oh, I can't ping for some reason, but a ling here and a ling here, a ling here. Yeah. Don't worry, I'll make sure you get to play in the next one, Kilo Kilo. And I might do some like subscriber replay analysis tomorrow, so I could do some watch some of your replays then. Yeah, and I think what you're doing here is fine, but again, I think you still thought he was going like into ground or something. Because you, like now you know, right, when this comes in, you see the fleet beacon, you see this, now you know it's Kaitos, but you already have like, you don't really want this. And these would preferably be drones. Yeah, like the way you should play it is either just like commit super hard to this timing with like Hydra Queen, or you should be like doing this push just to poke at him while you're like droning behind, going up to Hive, getting infestors or whatnot. Yeah, Banelings can be good. The thing is just, it's really hard. Like if he plays correctly, it's gonna be really hard for you to actually kill him with this timing. So I think like this would have been good if he was going like Voider into ground, but I think when you're going with Skytos here, you're kind of all in right now because you don't really have a transition except for Hydras. So like either you should have gone even harder all in with this push, or you should have been preparing for the transition faster behind it, right? Like more drones, infestation pit, spire for upgrades and stuff like that. Other than that, like from here, the way you played is actually pretty good, I think. Like you did a lot of multi-prong, you denied the space, which was good. Yeah, like his army is really small, right? Like you can basically force fights wherever you want, except like here and here. So this was pretty good. Yeah, like as you saw here, like the Banelings basically did nothing, right? Your Lings could have cleared up all this stuff by themselves. Like, we killed some batters, sure. But for the most part, the Banelings were kind of wasted gas. Yeah. Like now you're transitioning, but I think this should have happened a long time ago, right? And the upgrades too should have happened a long time ago if you weren't going like to commit super hard to this timing. But yeah, see here you're still in a good spot because there's no fourth base. I think this fight was a bit overeager. If you want to fight versus Skytos, especially if you're behind in upgrades, or like they have +2, you kind of need +2 armor if you want to take this fight. Or a lot of Hydras, like 225 pure Hydra. And it seems tempting to kind of try to go under here and get snipes from carriers, right? But I think the play is actually just to go for interceptors. In this scenario when there's not that many carriers, I think it's probably better to just go for the interceptors with the Hydras. Yeah, this move was good. Yeah, I like the multi-prong a lot. Yeah, and like here, he has no detection, right? And there's no High Templar or any transition at all. So if you just made infestors here, or even like a couple of Vipers, I think the game is 100% in your hands. Because like, you're mining so much more, and the only thing he really has is like he's gonna have this one big carrier push. So you kind of just have to deal with that and then you win. But like although this poking and double prong was really good, and you disengage, that was also good. Yeah, you're just pulling him apart. Like you played really well here. But you needed to, like this needed to be in production way earlier, right? And Burrow too. Like you needed this a lot earlier. So yeah, I think here at this point, you can't really fight this army with half your army, right? And like you have a bunch in production as well, because like you have a big chunk of your army here, your army is here. So I think the play here is just to commit to the full base trade right away. Just kill this base, kill everything here. You can deny mining from the high ground here, and then you just make a bunch of spores here like you did. You make infestors, rebuild your production earlier. We could have even made Vipers here, that would have been good too. Yeah. Yeah, I think from here it gets kind of rough for a while. Maybe you could have won if you like droned a bit. Like if you started droning now and like expanding like everywhere, right? Because you're gonna start throwing a lot of money here because you don't have anything to produce because you lost your early production. So I think here if you were like droning, getting more bases up, you could have still won this game from here if you just like max out on Hydra or make more infestors. But yeah, it's kind of rough from this point. Like once he kills the space, I think the game was pretty over. Yeah. Alright. So, are you still here, Fruit Seller, by the way? Yeah, for sure, Ozzy. Thank you for playing and have a good night. Alright, just layer, nice. So, obviously the supply block wasn't the best, right? But I think you already know that. I don't really need to say anything about that. You would make your overload here on 25. You don't need to mine this much gas. Like you can pull like a couple guys out of gas here pretty fast. Because the way you want to do it is you want to start this queen, and then you would start the other queen here on 25/26. And then you want to drone it to 28, and then you start your speed. So we don't need to mine that much gas here, because obviously you don't have enough minerals to start everything. Here we could have started it just because we got supply blocked, right? But if we weren't supply blocked, we wouldn't have the minerals to start this right away. Yeah, this scouting maybe could have been a bit better. Like we could have maybe checked a bit more carefully for what unit came out second. Like I kind of like to keep it here until the second unit pops, because if it's a stalker I can always make it back here in time before it dies. But that's a small detail. Yeah, and you kind of overmade links too. You don't need to make this many, especially with this opening. The big advantage is that you don't need Zerglings to secure your third. So you can make like 2 Zerglings at most, I think, just to chase off the probe. And yeah, I think this gas was maybe a little bit early. Actually, it was okay. Let's see when you took it. Yeah, this timing is actually somewhat okay. We just would like to spend our money a little bit better. Like the supply block in early game kind of threw off all your timings because you didn't have injects for these bases because of the delayed queens. Roachhorn was a bit early. Ended up being okay because of what he was going for, but there's basically like no need for you to start your Roachhorn before 4 minutes. Like this, like you could, yeah, this was a little bit early. Like you could have started it like now if you wanted to be super safe. Like you see no third base going down, but like you already saw this Void Ray, so you don't really need to be super scared. And yeah, like once you see the Void Ray, you should just make queens and drones, which you're doing. Yeah, losing 2 overs is kind of rough. It turns out okay. Yeah, and here I would just, these links, just put like 1 link here, 1 link on the third, 1 link here. So you have vision. So you know if you can drone or not. Because yeah, the supply block again kind of hurts. Like preferably the roaches we'd made now. These should have all been drones. And then you could have made roaches after that. Whoa. Robski, thank you so much for the 500 bits, man. Sorry you missed the game today, but I'll make sure you get to play next time. Yeah, but basically the way you would have liked to do this is like these drones. Let's see if you start them now. You made a run of drones here. Was it already passed? Yeah, like these drones should have been units, and these roaches that you have out already should have been drones. Like you made a bunch of unnecessary units early, so your like economy was worse than it should have been. Obviously, you needed to mine more gas here, because like your entire builder is kind of thrown off because of the supply block in the early game, right? With the late queens. So things are gonna be a bit different. But here you're fine. If you didn't see a third here, like you could just keep droning until you see no third. Like if you see no third by now, by like 4, like here. If you didn't see a third come down by like 5 minutes, then you start making roaches, right? But even then, you shouldn't make roaches blindly. Because it could still be like 2 Stargate Phoenix or something like that. Actually, you saw there was no 2 Stargate Phoenix. You saw this Robo and never mind. Yeah, because you saw this, so you know that there's no 2 Stargate Phoenix. So yeah, here you could just drone up to like 5 minutes and then start making roaches here. That way, you would have been at like at least like 60 drones already. And then now you'll be making only units. Would have been way more efficient. Yeah, like if you knew what was coming, like you should have had a Ling here, so you saw them move out. Start extra queens earlier. You could even like wall off with evos here with this charge slot all in, or you could just make units with the spines, roaches. But yeah, he was like super all in here, so even though you lost your third, you're still very far ahead, especially because you have this big bank. So yeah. Yeah, from here you just need to double expand, drone back up, get your upgrades going and stuff like that. Because yeah, he has just no tech whatsoever, and he wasn't probing behind this at all. So to be honest, you could probably just go across the map with these units. If the Prism went home, there's no real threat. So if you knew that the Prism went home, you should have gone across the map. You should scout for a third base to see if he's like going for a follow-up all-in, or if he's like you're playing kind of blind, right? Like you want to know if he's going for a follow-up all-in, or if he's going for an expansion. Because what you're doing here is like you're making units, drones, units, drones, units, drones. You want to make like drones and then units. You don't want to be making like a little bit of everything. You want to be making all your drones as fast as possible, right? So this is good, but you're doing it kind of blind. Yeah. Also, I never make the lurkers without the hive upgrades. So if your plan is to go lurkers, make sure you get the hive upgrades first. Yeah. Like actually, like if you just realized how strong you were here, you could have just gone across the map and killed them. To be honest, like there's not much he can do to stop you here. You kind of do that, like you end up denying the 4th base, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Yeah, now he's just kind of all-in into you. Like, he doesn't even have a forge, so he's still super all-in. So yeah, you just need to survive. In theory, you just need to survive. But you're probably far enough ahead to just kill him here. So yeah, those are really the big things. Creep spread, map vision. Yeah. Okay, so first off, I'm not sure why you went for the 14 hatch here. But it's fine. Like, it's something you can do. But if you go for 14 hatch, you can't go for the fast third. If you go for 14 hatch, you just gotta go like 2 queen, and like third base at like 30 supply. Yeah, no worries, it happens. But yeah, just like going for this, because now you went for this third base before queens, and look at this, like you're floating larva, you can't even start your queen. So yeah, like if you go for this, you need to not go for this so fast. Okay, anyways, it was fine. I prefer to keep my overlord here to just check the gateway. Sacking it is fine though. Did you get information? Yes, you got information, so it's okay. It's not the end of the world. I think going overlord speed here is a bit unnecessary because you already saw there's a Stargate. If you want to go overlord speed, you could go it a bit later. Because like you already know that it's a Stargate here, right? You don't even need to follow up scout right now. You can follow up scout in like 45 seconds or like a minute. But yeah, this follow-up scout is a bit too early to actually see anything, because it didn't actually give you any information at all, right? And you invested a lot of money into it, overall speed and an extra overlord. So yeah, and also I want to look at the aggression that happened. So yeah, here you need to have, like, this is also why I like to keep the overlord here, because you would have seen this move out. But you need to at least have some Zerglings. You had 3, but you need to have like at least 4 Zerglings at home. If you don't have vision of the opponent's adepts. If you know where the adepts are, you don't need to make the Zerglings. But if you don't know where they are, you need to have at least like 4 Zerglings here. Yeah, since we saw the Stargate, we shouldn't really get caught off guard by this Oracle. So if we know there's a Stargate and he could be making Oracles, we want to keep our Queens close to our mineral lines. And preferably have spores in the mineral lines where we don't have the mineral lines where we don't have 2 queens. So you have 2 queens here, that means you should have a spore here and a spore here. And again, Roach Warren not really needed, since we already saw that it was a Stargate. We don't need a Roach Warren, we could just save this money for drones and more queens. Yeah, you dealt with this okay, but you kind of overmade units here, like you made a lot of Zerglings and a Roach, which is pretty bad. So like once you get this around on these adepts here, we'll see. I don't know what happens. I already started it. Yeah, like the 16 is already a bit too much. You should probably just make like 10 or 12. But even that, like by the time the link spawn, the adepts will have done the damage anyways. So it might be better if you just save this larva for drones. But then you end up even making even more here, which was a mistake. So here you just want to get back into droning as fast as possible after you've defended, right? So these units should not have been made. But yeah, since you made them, you need to go across the map and try to cancel the 3rd base. So otherwise you're going to be very far behind. Which you do, which is good. But these units are also completely unnecessary. You don't need these roaches right now. These should be drones. Just drone. Like you already know, he went Oracle, Phoenix, 3 adept push. He can't really have that much that you need to be scared of here. You just need to deny this with your Zerglings and you're good. Yeah, yeah, from here droning, which is good. A faster Evo chamber probably would have been nice. But yeah, droning. So here you got the full scout with the overseer, I believe. Yeah, you saw all of this. So you should be going up to 66 drones for sure. Like when you see all this, he has like only 5 gateways, not even done yet. He has a Templar Archives. You want to be at least 66 drones here before you make more units. Which you do, that's nice. Here you could probably even drone this base, to be honest. Like this push is not very scary at all, he doesn't really have that much at all. So it's a pretty easy defense for you. In general, I think you don't need to make Hydras like this, unless you're like making more Skytoss units, right? Like there's only this 2 units. So I think in this scenario it's better to just make more roaches and focus the extra gas into your tech. Like you can still get the upgrades for the Hydras if you want, like these upgrades, but don't make any actual Hydras. Just make roaches and like a faster infestation pit, start your upgrades earlier. Stuff like that. Okay, you can use this push pretty easily. And I think here you could have just gone across the map and kind of killed him, because he had nothing to really fall back on. There's no storm, there's no tech, it's just kind of dead here. But yeah, again, I don't like Lurker Den without a hive. You should always go hive before Lurker Den, so you can go get the upgrades right away, because you don't really want to make lurkers without the upgrades anyways. And yeah, he was just kind of dead from the early game, like especially after this final push here where you clean him up. You kill these zealots, and he just doesn't really have anything, right? Like his 3rd base is so late, he has no gas. He's trying to get a fleet beacon. So he's just dead. Alright, no worries.
Let's do
Thing is
Albania.
kind of weird because normally there'll be a second gateway up here by now. So, like if there's a second gateway here, this just does nothing, right? So this should have probably been drones instead. But this is something you can go for. Like if he moved up with the adept, it would have been nice because you would have gotten in. It's kind of a tricky play, but can work. But yeah, like I think if you saw that the adept stayed home, going in is probably not the play. Maybe just keep the lings alive and bring them home instead. But you got it in anyways. You did a lot of damage. Like you kind of threw him off, so it ended up being very good for you. Simp? What? Not a simp. Yeah, this looked pretty good. You're playing a little bit blind. Like you see the Stargate, which is of course good, but like it's asserting on the third base, so you know at what time it goes down. Because like you would have probably died to like if you just went like, let's say he went Phoenix first, or one Void Ray into 6 gate, or one Void Ray into Chargelat Archon that hits at like 530. It would have been pretty rough for you to hold with the way you're playing. It ends up being fine just because he is playing like a fairly macro style, right? But you would have a bit to have a bit more information when you're doing this. Yeah, gases probably should have been a bit earlier if you're going for this Hydra style, because Hydras are very gas intensive. So you end up getting 4 gases here. Like I would almost just say you just go up to 6 gases here, since you're already at so many drones. You just like keep making a few more drones, go up to 6 gases. And still, you can still do this timing, just with 6 gases. Like if you want to go like 4 or 5 gas, just get them a bit earlier instead. Yeah, like what you're doing here is fine in this scenario. It's just that you're doing it kind of blind, so you probably would have died to a lot of timings here. But it ends up being fine. Being active with links just to scout this, to see what is warping in, stuff like that is really good. And like you skip the spores, but like you're going for this Hydra bailing timing, right? So if you can skip the spores, it's good. It's a bit greedy because if he had good Oracle control, he would probably kill a lot of your drones here. A lot of them here. He would come in here and poke at a few drones. He would come in here and poke at a few drones. You said something that you're aware of. But you had extra queens, so you ended up being okay. Yeah. At this point, like you played kind of greedy. You got away with it, and he got kind of thrown off from the first 6 links. So now you just kind of ended up ahead because you macroed pretty well. Like you hit your injects. You didn't really get supply blocked that much. So now you just have a sick timing here. There's supply block right now, but you've made like the initial chunk of the units you're gonna use
Fruit
anyways.
seller sells bruised fruits. No fresh fruits when you go to fruit seller.
Thank you so much for the bits again. Alright. And yeah, like he's pretty much already dead here. If you wanted to do this like optimally on this map, you would probably kill the rocks and go here. Like threaten the ramp, force him to come down away from his shield batteries, and when he goes down this ramp, you engage him, right? But you were just kind of far enough ahead that it didn't really matter here. You get in, you get the kills on the Archons, which was huge. Like once the Archons go down, there's not much else you can do. Yeah, I think just like the early game went very well for you. You macroed pretty well. You went for this timing with your advantage, and there wasn't much you could do at that point. So yeah, like the main thing I can talk about in this replay is just you probably should have scouted a bit better. Other than that, I don't think there was too much to talk about. Like, you were a little bit late with some of your queens in the early game because of you were macroing the Zerglings, right? But you ended up being ahead because you did so much damage anyways. Yeah. Yeah, you should probably start like your 3rd queen here and 34 supply. You would like to start your 3rd queen. Yeah, you do. Okay, that's nice. It's a little bit late. And then 4th queen. Yeah. Like this queen could have been earlier since you were floating a bit of money. So And yeah, like normally this money would go into sports and stuff like that as well, right? That's why you have some extra money. But you're gonna be able to spend it later into drones, which is nice. You have decent vision, which is good. I would just say, like, since you knew you were going up against a Stargate, just when you're not playing without spores, make it so that you have like 2 queens here, 2 queens here, instead of having like all 3 queens here, right? Because if the first oracle goes straight into the main, or straight here, or it comes around and comes from above it to the third, you're pretty sad. Now we flew straight into your queen, so that was pretty good for you. But yeah, just like if you're playing without spores versus oracle, make sure you split your queens so you have like 2 per base at least. But yeah, other than that, just scouting, being a bit more safe with what you're doing, because like what you're doing is not terrible, can work. But yeah, that's about it. Like at this point, the game is pretty much over already. I hope that was useful for you guys.